Hello. Hello from this side of time. Good afternoon, Africa. Good afternoon, Nigeria. I'm happy to be back in the class of politics and power. It is a class of history, and I'm glad to be back. I missed 2 editions last week because I was on the road. When I'm on the road, I am distracted enough that I will not be able to find my way into the studio. I hope you understand. But I'm back here, and in this class, we'll take a deeper look into self-determination. Is it the beginning of the end of the state, or the road to the rebirth of the state? I am Edmondo Bilo. Welcome to State Affairs. Welcome to the class of politics and power. And we will take it nice and slow. As usual, I don't rush the class. But let me tell you this. Let no one make you sad. Be happy. In fact, rejoice and shout with laughter. Throw your burdens down. If God has been so gracious as to make you black or brown, you are a great nation, a people of great birth. Now, whenever I read this poem by Kisley Hasey Ford, it reminds me of who I am. It reminds me of my Africanness. I am an African, and I'm proud. I will raise my head and say it loud. All African people, we are strong. So rejoice. I remember this story that I told long time ago. It was a dialogue. And I said to the blind boy, "But my father prepares the stick for the gang. The reason our house is full of happy people." Happy people, he asked. It marvels that in times like this, your house is full of happy people, he said. How? He continues, "How can I be happy when the traders in the market have nothing to sell?" So it means the people have nothing to buy. Do I have to live in the house of a town crier to be happy? He wonders. Am I the town crier? Welcome to my word. Welcome to history. Welcome to politics. Welcome to power. There is continually the challenge of nationhood. Having been a student of politics, I understand that states go through phases of development. And when I talk about states, I'm talking about countries. So in this context, I'm not talking about Oyo State. I'm not talking about Zamfara State. And I'm not talking about Anambra State. State in this context is the Nigerian state, the state of Ghana, United States. Your state is in Nigeria. Imo State is in Nigeria. So in a broader sense, they are involved in this critical analysis of self-determination. Let me also say, it is a broad lecture. It is not the lecture I will conclude today, but I will set a proper foundation into the lecture. In developing my note for the lecture, I looked at Ahhiara Declaration. Ahhiara Declaration was like the birth of the Biafran Constitution. In fact, I took a closer look through Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is like a case study in this class. Nigeria is a full study. So I will go here, go there, come here, and make some point. It's a ride, but not a bumpy one. In fact, it's a merry-go-round. In one phase, Nigeria, a state by colonial conquest, is externally induced for nationhood. And on the other hand, its peoples attained independence in 1960 by their sheer brilliance. You would say how? Who was brilliant? Azikiwe was brilliant. Nnamdi Azikiwe was. Awolowo was brilliant. The opportunity for independence is an experiment in politics, and it has led to crisis of election, coups, and a civil war in Nigeria. The experiment is still on, right? We are experimenting on democracy, are we not? Our experiment is like a bumpy ride. If you look at the state, the Nigerian state, it becomes a military state defined in the image of the military as represented in the 1999 Constitution written by the military. In the cauldron of the military is the plot for a democratic Nigeria hampered by ethnic wrangling and violent insurrections. You saw the last presidential election? The ethnic wrangling. It was like a battle between the Igbo and the Yoruba. And you come on X and the battle is still on. Some Igbos take on some Yoruba. It is the ethnic question. Under Buhari, the Igbo, the Yoruba, took on the Fulani. At that time, it was the Fulani problem. Fulanization, Islamization. In these arguments, the subject of self-determination continually springs up. Sunday Igboho at a time, wanting an Oduduwa state or an Oodua state. Nnamdi Kanu wanting the state of Biafra. Those in the Middle East, in the Middle Belt rather, wanting self-determination. They are tired of the attack by headsmen, bandits. Bandits suspected to originate from the Fulani ethnic tribe. or the Fulani ethnic group. So if you look at the ethnic question, you would ask, why was the June 12, 1993 election annulled? The victory of Moshood Kashimau Abiola in the June 12 election was annulled to make it clearer that the conflict of nationhood is the output of the leadership of the state at any time. So the leadership at that time was a Nigerian leadership, but it was also an ethnic leadership. Some would say, how? But Babangida was not a Fulani. You know the concept of the monolithic North. You might think it doesn't really exist, yes. But sometimes when it comes to a critical political decision, it springs up and it wins. Was that not what happened in the Babangida era? Did the North want June 12? When it was annulled, did they protest in the North? The protest was mainly centered in the West, the Yoruba states. Even in the East, it was quiet. So it was the Yorubas battling, fighting for the actualization of June 12, while the other tribes stood back watching. At that point, it was the Yoruba nation fighting for self-determination. Yes, there were some Igbo activists that were part of the Nadeko movement, but it was mainly concentrated in the Yoruba land and fought by top Yoruba politicians. Abraham Adesanya, Bola Ige, even Bola Ahmed Tinubu fought from the diaspora. Wole Soyinka, it was their battle. No wonder the country decided that in 1999, power should move to Yoruba people. And Obasanjo was lucky to have it. Bola Tinubu is there now. And the Yoruba question is springing up, especially in the East. They are agitating. Resulting from that infamous annulment of June 12 is the almost 25 years of democracy that we now enjoy. Are you enjoying it? Our democracy is challenged by rigging, corruption, by political parties' inadequacies. It is also challenged by the character of the Nigerian people, who would sometimes comfortably sell their vote, who would sometimes blindly follow their ethnic argument. However, we are coping as the struggle for our new Nigeria remain in the front burner. It is a struggle for a future of peace and prosperity. Meanwhile, one of the dividends of our democracy is the ongoing intense debate on fundamentally improving the constitutional order. In the debate is the subject self-determination as a means to prosperity and happiness. Let's examine a 2019 statement by the network of Niger Delta Republic fighters. I will quote from their press conference or their press statement. It reads, "It is quite unfortunate that The story has not changed till today, and we are standing on that declaration. We are standing on the declaration of the sovereign state of Niger Delta, and we will declare Niger Delta Republic on June 1st, 2019. The statement continues, "It is a common fact that Nigeria has completely derailed from the path of peace, justice, and progress as proclaimed by its founding fathers." So did they declare the state of the Niger Delta in 2019? No, they did not. Why did they not declare it? What scared them? Is the Nigerian state so powerful that those who want a state of their own will not want to dare the powers of the state? Nnamdi Kanu has dared the powers of the state. He is in the detention created by the state. Will he win, or will the state win? It is always a long journey, the journey of self-determination. The fight for independence was a fight for self-determination by the African. So by the declaration of the Niger Delta Republic fighters in 2019, it simply means that some persons in the Niger Delta are ready to get a new country, a new state. Like some Igbos want Biafra, a nation of their own. So, is it the beginning of the end of the state, or the road to the birth of new states, or the road to the rebirth of the state? Let's look at this Punch 28 July 2021 editorial statement. The Punch says now, centrifugal forces, once restrained, have broken out in fearsome force. Alienated ethnic nationalities, angered by prevailing pervasive injustice and marginalization, are campaigning for self-determination. The Punch, in its editorial, continues, the state is fast losing its legitimacy and its monopoly of means of coercion. Though the incumbent regime led by President Muhammadu Buhari inherited the quagmire, he has worsened it, the Punch concludes. One point that interests me in that 2021 editorial is this statement that the state is fast losing words. The state is losing its monopoly of violence. You know, the state's institutions of violence include the police, the army, the navy, the air force. The total security architecture of the state is the state's tool of violence. So when you are able to confront those institutions, it means the state is losing its coercion, its means of coercion. That means members of the state can confront the institutions of the state and sometimes get away with it. For example, what happened in Okwama in Delta State recently, where some militants gunned down 17 soldiers of the Nigerian army. if you look at it in the context of this editorial, militants have now attained the ability to confront the state. They can match the state in terms of violence. Because when you see the soldier brandishing the rifle is a tool for violence. In the southeast, policemen are being killed, soldiers are being killed. In the northeast, soldiers are being killed by non-state actors. Yes, they have not been able to overwhelm the institutions of the state, but they are confronting the institutions. So as the confrontation increases, the state loses its authority, and by implication, loses its legitimacy. And when we talk about legitimacy, when somebody comes out and say, oh, I don't want Nigeria, I want Biafra, and you see they are in their millions, to these ones, the state has lost its legitimacy. And the state would say, no, we refuse to lose our legitimacy and authority, and the state would take on them with the instruments of violence, guns, armored vehicles. You see it? So the Punch raised those issues in its 28th July 2021 editorial. Now, when you say the Yoruba nation, the Igbo nation, because Nigeria is a state of nations. Nigeria has not attained the status of a nation in the true sense of the word. Many see themselves as Igbos before they see themselves as Nigerians. Even Awolowo wrote it in his book, The Travails of Democracy, suggesting that you must first see yourself as a Yoruba before seeing yourself as a Nigerian. So in seeing yourself as a Fulani, you will love a Fulani more than you will love an Igbo. So in a fight between an Igbo and a Fulani will want to support a Fulani. The Igbo will want to support the Igbo because they see themselves as Igbo and Fulani. But not in every situation. There are situations where an Igbo can say, no, you are wrong. Stop oppressing that Fulani. Don't be harsh to that Yoruba. And from my research, a nation is a body of people united by a common descent and language. It is also a body of persons inhabiting a definite territory and united together by the fact of living together on a common land. So by that definition, Nigeria can also be called a nation. But in the intrinsic sense of it, Nigeria's nationhood is being questioned. In this case, things in common. So do you think Nigeria is a nation? And if it's a nation, is it a nation of nations? Remember, in this class, I will also want to hear from you. It's not just me. It is we. So I want to read your comment. I want to know what you think. I don't mind picking your calls. I think we are going to connect the lines soon. Now, I want us to listen to this professor of political science. He made this speech in 2016. And from his voice, you could deduce that he means what he says. So let's bring in Professor Adekonye here, talking about the Nigerian state.
And a change, a state, the Nigerian state we are currently running. I submit, the Nigerian state is overburdened. Overburdened and therefore has become parasitic. In league with a class that cannot produce results. We don't have a class which Singapore has with interest in development. We have a class that has taken over the Nigerian state, overburdened, parasitic. Now until we move out of this overburdened state. Now look at the list of functions which the federal government has. Look at the sizable amount from oil that services Abuja. You can't produce the cocoa boom, the granite boom of those years unless you restructure the Nigerian state. Get the federal government stripped of considerable list of functions and fiscal powers it has, devolve these powers to state and local level. Free the state of a parasitic class. If we don't do that, we'll be doing what the economists used to do in the past. You plan and leave out the political. Can a government that benefits from a centralized system increase initiative? It can't. It's not possible. So, even though the current government doesn't like this, he sees this as a partisan political thing, there's a need to restructure and move away from the centralized state formats. Get the states empowered, get local government empowered. If we don't do that, we vote somebody into power, he's captured by the state, and he runs that agenda. My worry is that we wake up one morning and discover the Nigerian state is gone.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
That is Professor Adekonye there, a professor of political science, talking about the state. So if you're just joining the class, I welcome you to the class of politics and power, the class of history. On this edition, we are looking at self-determination, the beginning of the end of the state, or the road to the rebirth of the state. Adekonye there talks about restructuring the state. That means giving a new life to the state. That is the rebirth of the state. But some are saying no. The state is old, let it die, so that we can have new states. So we are looking at the issues, breaking them down, putting them in perspective, and trying to create a broader understanding of where we are coming from, where we are, and where we are going to. So I have tried to define what a nation is And from the definition, the Yoruba people are a nation because they are a people of common descent and language. The Igbo nation, common people, common language. Again, a nation is also the body of persons inhabiting a definite territory and united together by the fact of living together on a common land. The Igbo, the Yoruba, the Hausa, the Ishakiri, the Ijo, the Tiv, the Jokuns, they live in Nigeria. That is the common land. So they are a nation. So they might come from a number of races, but by living together, they develop certain things in common, like America, different races, Japanese, Nigerians, Ecuadorians, those from South America, Indians, they are in America, different races, but they are united by the American dream. So the United States is a nation. The ties that bind the people to make them a nation are psychological and spiritual. There are common feelings to live together. Now we are going deeper. That common feelings to say we are one. Let's live together. Let there be justice. Let there be peace. Do we have that common feelings? What makes a group of people a nation is not necessarily a community of race. Now we are taking it deeper. That is why when I started, I said in the deeper sense, in the truest sense of a nation. Is Nigeria a nation? It depends on the context. So from the definition, from one definition, Nigeria is a nation. But that deeper context, that is where I'm going to. So what makes a group of people a nation? It's not necessarily a community of race, language, or religion, but the sentiment of common consciousness or like-mindedness. That common consciousness. Oh, he's my brother. I love him. Don't hurt him. You know, I don't know about you. I'm not a tribalist. I operate from the southwest. And sometimes when they say, are you Yoruba? I say, yes, I'm Yoruba. They say, are you Igbo? Yes, but I'm Igbo. Are you Benin? Yes, I am Benin. You know, the flow in my vein, there's this Igbo-ness in me. But there's this Yoruba that also flows in me. There's this Benin-ness that flows in me. So who I am? Who do you think Edmond Obilo is? Who is Edmund? Who are you? But there are certain persons, their Igbo blood is untainted, and they want to emphasize it. Give us Biafra. Every other thing we don't want. There are some. The blood of Oduduwa, it's so intense in their system that they don't see your Igbo-ness. They only see their Yoruba-ness. You can call them the extremists. And you can call them the ethnic jingoists. It doesn't mean it is negative. It is their feeling. It is their consciousness. So in that case, they will not see that common consciousness when they stand with a Fulani or a Yoruba. And you have it in every nation. Even in America, there are some who don't want to be Americans. But when the majority says, this is where we want to go, they take the day. Some say, call for a referendum. Let's know where we stand. Will Nigeria dare to call for a referendum? I have made the point that the ties which bind the people to make them a nation are psychological and spiritual. There are common feelings to live together. Just imagine when a Yoruba man sees a Yoruba man in London, there's this feeling, whoa, my brother. Even in Nigeria, oh, a Fulani sees a Fulani, my brother. They don't have that feeling for an Igbo man the way they have for the Fulani. Did you get it? Let's look at Zimmern. I was reading the argument of Zimmern in one of my political science textbooks. Zimmern makes the point that statehood is political. Nationality is a condition of the mind, while statehood is a condition in law. Nigeria is a product of the constitution, so it's a state. Zimmern makes the point that statehood is a law. But Biafra is a condition of the mind. That Biafra is a condition of the mind. Why Nigeria is a condition in law? That is the point Zimmern is making. Are you with me? He says nationality is a spiritual possession. That the Igbo-ness is a spiritual possession. Yoruba-ness, spiritual possession. Ijo-ness, a spiritual possession. Sometimes when you listen to Asari Dokubo saying, don't try the Ijo man. He's possessed by the spirit of Ijo. When you see Nnamdi Kanu, pontificating before he was arrested in his broadcast, you could see the intense Igbo spirit, the way he would take other tribes to the cleaners. Do you have that intensity? The Nigerianness is Nigerian spiritual in your life. Do you feel the spiritual connection? Zimmern says statehood is an enforceable obligation. You must be a Nigerian. Nigeria is indivisible. That's the point he's making. So it's enforceable. If you try to divide it, the president will send the military after you. It's enforceable. We must enforce the unity of Nigeria, whether you like it or not. So Zimmern says statehood is an enforceable obligation. But what happens when Biafra becomes a state? In that case, when somebody springs up from Biafra and says he wants another state, the Biafran state will enforce the unity of the state. It becomes the Nigerian state. In that case, will Biafra remain spiritual? Let's break it down. Let me know what you think. I want to hear from you. I've told you this is a long lecture. And the question of self-determination is a lecture I intend to run throughout the year. I will start it, I will pause, go back to my research, listen to your feedback, come back again. Because my note continues to throw up new questions that I must answer. And when I cannot answer it, I'll go back to the drawing board, do more research, look at nations. Let me see. Let me read your comment. What you have to say. Okay, Anazudo Chijoke. Anazudo is watching from Moscow. Kazim Bakari says Nigeria is not yet a nation, but a country. When you also make this point, put some argument. Why? Why do you think so? You can come, explain. There's something to learn from you. Hassan Lawal says restructuring will sure go a long way. So Hassan believes in the rebirth of the state. Femi Labi says the analysis of the nation is so deep and it can be so complex, Femi. You know, sometimes it can be so confusing. Perhaps the reason I decided to go study political science, to have a clearer view, understand theories. Oku Dilichukwani, thank you for joining the broadcast. Let me type in my number here, number to call. Let me say number to call. I'm typing it here, number to call. So you can see it on Facebook. I'm typing on Facebook now. If you can't type, you can call 080-309-18449. Send. Yes, number to call 080-309-18449. Let me see if I can do so. Same for X. X, number to call. I don't know. Okay, I don't want to. Let me see who is watching on X. I don't know why X doesn't pop it up. Yeah, I can see we have more viewers on X. Yeah, more viewers on X. X, hello. Greetings to the X guys. Yes, Facebook. Well done. Abolaji Olalekon. Hey, Yemi Prodigy. Yemi is watching. Yemi, how far now? Yemi is watching from the UK. Pedro Olayemi says, I wish I could join now, but I am definitely watching this later on YouTube. Yes, we are streaming on YouTube. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on LinkedIn. And we are streaming on Facebook. I want to send you a mail also. I have been checking your pages to see if I can get it, but I couldn't. Okay, I'll be waiting for your mail. And we are streaming on State Affairs app. We are streaming on State Affairs app. So you can go on the app, State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo. You download the app on Google Play Store. See, that app is ours. That app is our love. Tomorrow, Mark Zuckerberg might decide to say, I'm shutting you down from Facebook. But they can't dare do that with our app. But they can, oh, can you imagine? They can decide to pull your app off the App Store. They can decide to pull it off Google Store. And that is where the question of digital sovereignty comes in. So at some point when we are talking about self-determination, we'll get to digital sovereignty. Benchidi, good to have you here. So I've given you the number to call. Oh, somebody has been calling. I just try again. Please call again. I wasn't looking at the phone. +7 999. Can you try again? I'll put you on. I'm looking at the phone. If you can hear me, so just try again. The program is State Affairs. I am Edmondo Bilo. I have talked about Zimmern's definition of the nation. Okay. That is Peter. Hello. We have a caller. Can you hear me?
Hello, Radio Man from Moscow, Russia. I can hear you clearly, Radio Man.
Good. I can hear you too.
Calling from Moscow, Russia.
Good. Happy.
Enjoy your program always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
There's something that happened in Russia some time ago. So this country fought a brutal war with Chechen people. At the end of the war, they had to settle the conflict. Chechnya is still under this Russia. They are still in Russia. They still use same currency with Russia, rubles. But they have their own, as a monarch, a king. over there, but they are still under Russia. Same passport, same currency, and same currency and same passport. So I think if Nigeria can go into restructuring can do a better thing in Nigeria, can work in Nigeria. But without that restructuring, I don't see Nigeria going ahead. I don't see Nigeria going ahead. When someone becomes the president, maybe people from southern Nigeria will be antagonizing the person from the north. When person from southwest or southeast becomes the president again, that is how the thing will be going around. So it's better for restructuring.
Thank you.
Maybe southwest, southeast, and south-south. Same thing in the north. I think it will do well in Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
calling.
thank you to Radio Ma. Yeah.
Yes, you can call. If you don't have the number, I'll give you the number. 080-999-18449. It's on the screen. Can you see it? The number is on the screen. So call on WhatsApp. WhatsApp call. I want to hear from you. If I'm ready to give you this class, take it. Let's hear your voice. So that this radio man's voice is not dominating the class all the time. Right? So I'm waiting for your call. Switzerland. Okay? We have another call here. This must be Stephen. Hello.
Waiting for you.
It's your call. I heard myself just now. Boy.
I can hear you loud and clear, Edmond.
All right. Your name?
Good day, Edmond. It's Stephen from Scotland.
Good to hear your voice.
Always a pleasure also. I don't know why you chose this subject, because you and I know it's a very delicate one. And it is also controversial. But if we are gonna talk about this subject, then we'll have to be very honest. First things first, Edmond, just a quick question. Was there really a nation in the first place? That is where we should start from. Was there really a nation in the first place? How can you give what you don't have? Restructure all, for all I care, restructure anything you want to restructure is all blabberdash. Nothing is going to happen. Our problems are very deep-rooted. If we were to solve them, and this is where, unfortunately, I have to say some things that, I'm scared to say. It's going to be brutal. It's not going to be a walk in the park. It's not what you're just going to do verbally. Whether we like it or not, lives might be lost or lives will be lost. It's deep-rooted. It's a generation. The people are setting, even if you look at some sets of ministerial appointments being done, it still took least some people from the First Republic. So we are going around in circles. I mean, we are going around in circles. To me, it was never a nation in the first place. I hate to use the word divide, but once again, I have no hope in anything restructuring. I don't know how old you are, Edmond. I believe I've told you my age once. I'm in my early 50s. If I tell you how many times I've heard the word white paper being released, this report, something panel, tell me, where have all those things gotten us to at the end of the day? Yeah. So that's my contribution. That's, to me, you cannot give what you don't have. I don't know. Was there ever a nation in the first place? That's the one thing the Yorubas had. Awo. Awo knew from the beginning, Awo fought the right battle for his people. While some other people were busy fooling themselves in the name of nationality. So hate Awo for all you like. I think he was the one man that got it right from the beginning. I think he knew, and that's where, to me, he's head above the rest in some of these issues. All this rubbish about nationalism, you know. Edmond, let me allow others talk. It's been a pleasure, but that's do they say my 2 pence? How do they say it on the issue?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we are having a candid discourse here. Don't forget, this is a class of history, politics, and power. Candid talk. But in having our candid talk, let's make the discourse intellectual. To be intellectual is to have a deep sense of history, of politics, and power. Yes, Switzerland does not speak a common language, but it's a nation. France and Spain have Basque population, but Basque is not a nation. Are you there? At independence, British India was strongly divided along Hindu-Muslim lines. In 1947, it was partitioned into Pakistan, the Muslim-dominated part, and India, the Hindu-dominated part. So they solved their problem at independence. They saw the conflict they were constantly fighting. But not all Muslims were able to find their way in Pakistan. So India still has a large Muslim population. In this case, the concept of two nations, one state, collapsed, leading to the partitioning of India. However, religious homogeneity could not stop East Pakistan from breaking out in 1971 to be Bangladesh. Are you following the example I'm giving? It was thought that the problem in independent India in 1947 was the problem of Muslims versus Hindus. So Pakistan was created out of India. By 1971, some Muslim population in Pakistan began the agitation in 1947. And by 1971, they broke out and became Bangladesh. They were Muslims too. How do we explain this? Interesting. I want to listen to you. Call the number on the screen. Call on WhatsApp. I'm giving you the different scenarios. You know, if you make Yoruba a nation, a state, okay, if you make Yoruba a state, the Oduduwa state, does this mean that there will be peace? You know, in this discourse, I'm going to bring Yoruba history as a case study. I don't know if you've read about the Parakbo War. You know, Yoruba had its own wars. Ibadan against Oyo, Ibadan against Ekiti, Ibadan against Egba. There were ethnic wars in Yoruba land until Awolowo was able to unite the Yoruba people. We will look at that. Remember, it's a long discourse. However, a nation is not limited to a state. It can cut across states. Example, the German nation is in Germany, but you also find Germans in Austria and Switzerland. Like you find Yoruba people in Benin. Let me make this point again. Example, the German nation is in Germany, it's in Austria, and it's in Switzerland. The Yoruba nation is in Nigeria, in Benin Republic, even in Togo, even in some parts of Jamaica. I'll give more examples as we go. The many nationalities in the former Soviet Union had linguistic and cultural autonomy. At the fall of the Soviet Union in 1989, they transformed to cultural autonomies. They transformed the cultural autonomies to statehood. How? Remember, the Russian-dominated Soviet Union grew into one of the world's most powerful and influential states. The Union was made up of 15 republics, and that's why it was called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The Union was made up of 15 republics. You had Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, Belarusia, Uzbekistan, and Armenia. There was Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. But Moscow was the capital of the Soviet Union. It broke up into 12 countries. They are now Russia, Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, including Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. Have you been to Tajikistan? Before the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic was by area the world's largest country. It was also one of the most diverse, with more than 100 distinct nationalities, and with Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians as majority, making up more than 2/3 of the total population in the late 1980s. Call me. Talk to me. I want to hear from you. The lines are open. As I wait for your call, that is 080-999-18449. Let's look at some books. I have this book here, Federalism and Political Restructuring in Nigeria. Look at it. Federalism and Political Restructuring in Nigeria. That is the book. Let me show it here. My documentary photographer is here. Federalism and Political Restructuring in Nigeria, edited by renowned professors. Adigun Agbaje, a political professor of political science, taught me in the University of Ibadan. You have Rotimi Suberu. By the time I came for my master's degree in political science, University of Ibadan, Rotimi Suberu had traveled to the United States, where he lectures now. Kunle Amuwo and Judges Harrod. This book is a classic. Yes. Get a copy on udarabooks.com. Federalism and Political Restructuring in Nigeria contains essays written by 4 generations of Nigerian scholars. It is the first to examine the historical, political, economic, and comparative dimensions of attempts by the military to restructure the Nigerian Federation. From chapter to chapter, evidence piles up in support of the book's central thesis that autocratic rule is antithetical to the sustenance of genuine federal practice, and that federal restructuring initiated under the tight control of the repressive government cannot but lead to a situation in which federalism is assaulted, abused. Okay? Hey. Good to have you here.
Yeah. Edmondo Bilo,
I greet you.
the radio man.
Hmm?
Thank you. I am Kendo Obieze. I like your program. It's quite educative. It's eye-opening. You know, I wish that so many other radio men like you can do what you are doing. I've listened to your analysis. I've also listened to the contributions from other people. Some have said that Nigeria cannot be good unless there's a kind of quagmire, kind of strife. But I don't subscribe to that. From your analysis of what is happening in other nations, it's quite clear that division cannot solve the problem, because once you divide the country according to ethnic line or religious line, there is no guarantee that such will not continue to happen in those minute divisions. What I would suggest is that it is high time these old politicians, the old men, the elites, gave way for the younger generation to steer the affairs of the country. Once this is done, believe me, the agitation to divide the country or even make wars would have been abated. There is nothing good in violence. If you check other nations that try to solve their problem by violence, you find out that they continue to wallow in violence. So what I expect from our younger generation is to put themselves in a way that people can see that they have the potentials to steer the affairs of Nigeria. They should stop the sycophancy. Today in Nigeria, when a politician gives a young man 50,000 naira, the young man can even kill his friend or even his parents to make way for the older generation, knowing full well that this older generation, once they get to power, they forget about you. They cannot even pick your calls anymore. Watch it. All these people that snatch ballot boxes and all these things, once they have succeeded in putting the wrong people in power, ask them if they ever call them and receive a call from them. They will never. So what I'm saying is that it is high time we youths enter that politics and change the affairs of the country without any bloodshed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm enjoying the discourse. Thank you. You know, the calls are interesting, different perspective. And that is how to build a country. I have recommended this book to you. You see it? Federalism and Political Restructuring in Nigeria. One of the editors of this work is Professor Adigun Agbaje. Adigun Agbaje, in this interview with me, looks at the ethnic question. And part of the question I asked Professor Adigun Agbaje are some of the points he also made in his writing in this book, Federalism and Political Restructuring in Nigeria. I highly recommend this book to you. You get it on udarabooks.com. You can also get it through the WhatsApp number you are calling at the moment. You can get it through that WhatsApp number. So let's listen to Professor Adigun Agbaje, a professor of political science.
The ethnic question so fundamental that if we don't resolve it, the state will keep on being chaotic.
In a sense, the ethnic question is fundamental because it is constantly being used by the elite and increasingly also by the non-elite. Well, part of the ethnic question is that the way we pose it is also a problem. As I said not long ago, ethnicity remains a problem because people manipulate ethnicity. The ethnic question, ethnicity, it can be both a negative and a positive resource. The fact that we have never seen a sustainable installation of dictatorship in Nigeria is partly due to our ethnic and other compositions, the diversity of national life. But when you have those who rule and those who aspire to rule manipulating a particular form of identity for negative purposes of seizing power, then the negative dimensions get more emphasized. When you talk about the North and you talk about ethnicity, what does that mean? The ethnic composition of the North is diverse. We simplify it when we talk about a monolithic North.
Yes.
We all know it is not. The divisions within the North are probably even more contentious and contested than the divisions between the North and the South. So we need to emphasize that.
But you still see the Hausa Fulani dominance.
There is the Hausa and there is the Fulani. Our language is part of the problem. What is the Hausa Fulani ethnic group? It's a construction. Demographically, it doesn't really exist. Politically, it is an instrument for Fulani hegemony. And people know that. When you talk about the Igbo identity, was it there in the early 19th century the way it is now? Was the Yoruba identity there in the 19th century the way we have it now? No. We need to, as you said at the beginning, take full cognizance of history. We have not done enough. I mean, our great historians have done their bit, but there's still so much of history to unlearn and to relearn, because we have tended to use history to emphasize those things that divide us, instead of using history to emphasize those things that unite us and lessons that we can learn about war and peace from 1,000 years of the territory now called Nigeria.
You know, you have researched, you have studied.
Yes.
Does Buhari understand these issues?
Again, I would say we are being led to focus on individuals because individuals make all the difference in Nigeria, but they don't have to. In societies that are progressing, even in Africa, it is not individuals, it is institutions. Is the presidency constructed in a manner to make somebody who is weak strong in office, to make somebody who is not knowledgeable surrounded by knowledgeable people? Because when you talk about the presidency, it's not the occupant of the presidency that matters. Anybody, look at what's happening in the United States now. We have somebody not in the normal mood, but the institutions are coming around to constrict his capacity to seriously damage the American system.
Our institutions are weak, right?
They are weak and they are being further weakened.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
That is Professor Adigun Agbaje there, a professor of political science, University of Ibadan. It is the class of politics and power. You know, there he talks about the Fulani. That interview was conducted when Buhari was the president. Now let's look at the example of the Fulani. Call him a Fulani or a Fula or a Fube. He comes from a Muslim majority tribe. He is a tribe in Africa. The total population of the Fulani tribe worldwide is estimated to be between 45 to 49 million, with the largest number found in West, North, and Central Africa. Are you getting the point? The Fulani is a nation, but they are not in one state. By geographical distribution, the Fulani is an African citizen. The largest concentration of the Fulani is in the Fouta-Djallon highlands of Guinea, where the Fulani is the majority tribe. The Fulani forms a significant population of Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Fulanis are minority in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, Ghana, Benin, Guinea-Bissau, Togo, Côte d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Chad, Togo, Liberia, and South Sudan. Can you see? The Fulani is in South Sudan, Togo, in the Fulani and have a territory. They conquered the Hausa states through war. They are the minority, but they conquered the majority. So they governed them after conquering them. That is why the emirs in the north are Fulani. The Hausa cannot be an emir. The Hausas are conquered people. So quietly, there is a war in the north going on, but it hasn't blown up. It is the war between the Fulani and the Hausa and the bandits' war. You know, most of the herdsmen are Fulani, while most of the farmers are Hausa. So that war of bandits in Zamfara, in Sokoto, can be interpreted as the Fulani-Hausa war. But somehow they've been able to check it. They didn't give it that ethnic dimension. Because both tribes have somehow integrated. The Fulani does not really speak Fube. The Fulani speaks Hausa. So that you can see that integration. That's why when they fight, sometimes you don't see it. Because the Fulani speaks Hausa, but the language of the Fulani is Fube. So many Fulani cannot even speak Fube, but they can speak Hausa. You get it? It is the discourse on self-determination. About 13 million Fulanis are pastoralists, making it one of the largest nomadic pastoral tribes in the world. So the agitation by self-determination groups in Nigeria for a sovereign state of Biafra or the Republic of Oduduwa draw attention to the ethnic disaffection in Nigeria. Almost 5 decades after the Nigerian Civil War, caused by ethnic animosity, the argument still revolves around the politics of ethnicity. According to some analysts, the inability of Nigerians to resolve the ethnic question will lead to the Adeni, where we looked at the Fulani question, but not on this edition. Because that interview, I can say, is acidic. But I decided to broadcast it. While I was broadcasting it, there's this feeling, this palpitation. Because Chief Adeli was too hard. But that was his view. I didn't want to hide his view. In fact, I'm going to post that interview again on TikTok, on X, on Facebook. That's his view. You know, I was feeling, okay, let's be calming down. Chief Tola Adeni, calm down. Not in this edition. I will bring that interview. Progressive politics manages religious and ethnic diversities, and it can save Nigeria from a conflict of unimaginable consequences. So by this, the Jonathans, the Buharis, the Tinubus become leaders seeing through the waywardness of a group like the Fulani herdsmen aggression, and they will creatively replace that aggression, that nomadic character, with modern animal husbandry structures for sustainable development. So they are entangled in the Nigerian question. I have recommended the book to you, Federalism and the Political Restructuring of Nigeria. That book contains essays written by Nigerian scholars on the historical, political, economic and comparative dimensions of attempts by the military to restructure the Nigerian Federation. I want to recommend another book to you. This is the first one. The second book I'm recommending to you is this one. Is this book. You see the book? Under Three Masters. Under Three Masters. That is this. It was written by Jerome Oputa Udoji. Is the author of this book. It's an old book. It is out of print. But I found some copies. I went looking for some copies. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to collect every book on history, politics, and power on Nigeria. Every book written on Nigeria. So I'm searching for them. Even if they are old books, as far as they've not been used, they are still new. And I'm finding them in some warehouses where some of them were abandoned, and I'm paying for them. And I'm bringing it to you that you should read them. Under Three Masters, Memoirs of an African Administrator, that is Jerome Udoji. Under Three Masters, the eventful life and career of a Nigerian administrative officer who had the unique experience of serving under the colonial, civilian, and military regimes. As the first African district officer, the author went down memory lane to give an in-depth account of his outstanding stewardship, the problems connected with the transfer of power, as well as those inherent in the exercise of power by Nigerians, past, present, and the future. Having been at the center stage of Nigeria's evolving political adventure, Jerome Udoji in this book profiles his type of political arrangement which he feels is ideal for Nigeria. The book, which also dwells on the author's varied experiences in both the private sector and the international service, is a compulsory reading for historians, politicians, government officials, administrators. Are you a student? You need to read this book. I recommend this book, Under Three Masters, to you. I have read it, and I'm going to quote for it at some point. I'm going to read from it at some point in this discourse. So you will get this book on udarabooks.com, udarabooks.com, or you can contact Udara Books on WhatsApp. The WhatsApp number you've been calling is one of the numbers of Udara Books. So I'm ready to take your calls. Call in. Let's hear from you. I have talked about the Fulani. Now let me talk about Ethiopia. Let me talk about Ethiopia. Before I will now come to the definition of self-determination. Ethiopia is in a second attempt at democratization following the political reforms introduced in 2018 by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. The political space was liberalized as political prisoners were released, and those that were sent into exile were invited to return home for a new democratic order. These reforms were aggressively pursued, and it charged the polity of Ethiopia, leading to political violence along ethnic lines, causing the displacement of more than 2 million Ethiopians. You know, when you say political reforms, if you aggressively reform, it has its consequences. If you aggressively change social and political structures, it can lead to bloody insurrection, even when the intention is to achieve progress. You know, politics is so complex. Because if you aggressively restructure, you are going to displace some persons who have been enjoying the old structure. And most times they fight back. And if those who will now enjoy the new structures are not prepared, they will be taken unawares. Still talking about Ethiopia. An article published by Al Jazeera states that almost 900,000 Gidio people fled from their homes in the Guji zone of Oromia state at the beginning of the conflict. I'm talking about recent conflicts. Ethiopia is built on ethno-national federal arrangement. Get the point. I want you to listen to this point carefully. Ethiopia is built on ethno-national federal arrangement. The bigger ethnic groups are self-governing within the Ethiopian state. By 1995, when the government of strongman Meles Zenawi introduced the constitution, the ruling Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front autocratically dominated power. The ruling party, a coalition of 4 ethno-national parties, contributed immensely to the ongoing ethnic tensions in Ethiopia. The coalition regional states of Oromia, Tigray, Somalia, and even Amhara were dominated by ethnic nationalists during the time of Meles Zenawi's. I'm talking about ultra-nationalists. But the control of the coalition by the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, TPLF, led by Zenawi at that time, generated ethnic resentment because under Zenawi, the Tigray people dominated Ethiopia, and they were not the majority tribe, but they were one of the major tribes. Like you have Igbo, Yoruba, you have the Fulani, the Ijo. So it's like the Ijo will now dominate the Fulani, the Igbo, the Hausa. So the Tigray people dominated because Meles Zenawi was a Tigranian. So he led that coalition and governed Ethiopia. The coalition employed xenophobic and ultra-nationalist rhetoric to mobilize constituencies in the competition for power and resources in Ethiopia. Zenawi appointed governors for the 9 regional states, thereby limiting the powers of the region to truly self-govern on the basis of the consent of their peoples. It was a highly centralized system administered from Addis Ababa by Zenawi. Following his death in Brussels in August 2012, after falling ill, the various ethnic groups sought stronger autonomy, leading to further ethnic clashes. The emergence of Abiy in 2018 was born out of a process to douse ethnic tension. He comes from the Oromo ethnic group, the largest in Ethiopia, yet before 2018, nobody from that group became Ethiopian leader. The majority tribe did not produce the leader of Ethiopia until recently, and that is represented by Abiy. Remember that the emergence of Zenawi followed a 17-year-long civil war that caused regime change in 1991 and the secession of Eritrea in 1993. His deputy, Haile Mariam, would assume power after his death, causing further eruption. So I've given you this background into Ethiopia. Under Zenawi, he tried to centralize Ethiopia like Aguiyi Ironsi tried to do in 1966 by coming with that unification decree. So Zenawi did it. He was a warlord, so he won that war and became the leader. So immediately he died in 2012. That tension exploded. But the elites came together and negotiated as became the president. Like political elites in Nigeria in 1999 said, okay, let's move it to the Yoruba people. They have been punished enough. Abiola was killed in prison, or Abiola died in prison, as some would say. You know? So they said, okay, let's move it to Yoruba people. So that was what happened in 2018. So when Abiy came in, they reformed the constitution. So here I'm asking, is Ethiopia dancing to its own music? Ethiopia, despite its 1,100, I'm talking about 1,100,000 square kilometers. That is the landmass of Ethiopia. That country, as big as it is landlocked, thereby directly disconnecting the people from the sea. We'll look at that at some other point. Surrounding Ethiopia are its neighbors in the Horn of Africa. Eritrea in the north and northeast. In the east, there is Djibouti, and Somalia looks at Ethiopia in a climate of conflict. And there was this Somalia-Ethiopia war. What was the war about? From Somalia. We're breaking up Africa in the Berlin Conference. Some part of the Ogaden people became part of Ariel. Felt no. Ogaden people, the Ogaden territory belongs to Ethiopia, and it launched the war. With a population of over 115 million, Ethiopia is the second most populous country in Africa. Addis Ababa is its capital, and also the capital of Africa. The political turbulence after the death of Zenawi and after the stepping down of his deputy, who later became the prime minister. I'm talking about Haile Mariam Desalegn. Violence erupted in Ethiopia. It was unexpected in a climate of high government brutality and the people holding their ground, calling for democratic reforms. This time, under Hail Miriam Desalegn, it appeared that the ethnic groups wanted out, except the country was properly restructured on the basis of ethnicity. So the first casualty of that agitation was Hail Miriam Desalegn. Let me make the point clearer. When Zenawi died in 2012, his deputy, Hail Miriam Desalegn, took over. So he governed from 2012 to 2018. So while he was governing, ethnic tension was rising. So he was forced to step down in 2018. Let's listen to Hail Miriam Desalegn as he gives this speech about Ethiopia. We are gradually coasting home on this edition of State Affairs. So Hail Miriam Desalegn talks about Ethiopia.
What with decades-long the civil war, ethnic inequality and oppression, abject poverty and whatnot, Ethiopia 23 years ago was a power cage on the brink of disintegration, and its nations and nationalities subject to all kinds of violence. We did face a stark reality, and we had to make a very difficult choice. It was very obvious that the only way to save the country from making it possible for the fullest possible mobilization of our people. Our nascent democratic institutions have also been instrumental in helping to get the government policy priorities right. Not only have we managed to address potential source of violent conflicts between and among communities through the new political arrangement, but we have also expanded the reach of and access to various social services throughout the country, thereby addressing the rampant inequality that characterized Ethiopia in the past. We have created millions of jobs through the promotion of small and micro enterprises, opened dozens of universities and technical and vocational institutions, and continue to build on our achievements and work on our weaknesses. Amartya Sen has suggested that the objective of development should be the enhancement of people's capabilities or the opportunities open to people of being and doing a variety of things. For this to happen, not only should development be the priority, but it should also be achieved through and is further expedited by a participatory democratic path that ensure the fullest possible choice for citizens and unleash their energy. Although we still have a long way to go, what we have achieved the last 2 decades is proof positive that there is no shortcut path to peace and human security than through democratic developmental approach. As clearly stated in our foreign affairs and national security policy, our insurance, even against external aggression, is how successful we are in effectively addressing our democratic deficit and prevalent poverty, which have always been the twin source of our vulnerability. We believe there are inseparable building blocks of our national security. Now that we are making progress on both 2 fronts, we have been able to reduce threats to human security as well, whether from conflicts or from lack of economic transformation.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Okay, that's Hail Miriam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, speaking before he stepped down. Kendo Obieze is asking, the radio man, when will the old men give way for the younger generation to steer the affairs of Nigeria? Power is not given, it is taken. Huh? If you want power and you are young, you have energy, yet you cannot take it from the old men, stop complaining. Chukwubueze Onyeze, yes, good afternoon. I'm happy to see you here. Ifara Jimmy Oloruni Shola, happy to see you here. Dominic Adawa says, hey, Radio Man, how are you doing? As you can see, I'm doing well, but I can do better. Leckinson says he's happy to be in class this afternoon. Thank you for joining the class. Though we didn't start at 2 today. We started at 3. Sorry about that. We're having network challenges, internet challenges, but we are able to get better connection as we waited. Hazan Lawal says the process of dividing into regions is not really visible and would take a long time to get it right because we have been mixed. Omoba Adegboyega says, you are right, Edmund. Bandits in the north is also about Hausa and Fulani fight. Adedayo Ogundimu says political restructuring without a renaissance of political culture and democratic values will lead to a great disappointment. He's taken it deeper. Except this crop of autocratic leaders without any iota of democratic culture are not the ones going to drive the process. If you want to drive the process, drive it. Don't wait. Drive it. Young persons, drive it. You fight for it. Today you were celebrating the guys in Senegal. They went to prison. Sonko, the leader of opposition in Senegal, went to prison. In fact, he was barred from running the election. He had to tell his guy, Faye, you go in, don't worry. Go in. He's the leader of Faye, but now Faye is the leader. They fought for it. You can't sit in your bedroom and say, old man, go. They won't go. Power is sweet. You take it. You even heard Tinubu saying, grab it. Wrong with it. And you are there sitting in your sitting room. Go and grab Tinubu's waist. Not even grab them. Tell them you want power. Show them you want power. You fight for power. Power is not given. It is taken. You hustle for it the way you hustle for money. All right? I am giving you the analysis. I'm breaking it down in this class of politics and power. We are not going to go beyond 5 o'clock, okay? Like I said, it is not one class. It is a continuous discourse. Okay, I can see Tunji Romini asking me here, please, could you give a list and corresponding prices for all the books on our history that you recommend and share them with me? Notification about pickup, delivery would be appreciated. Okay? But Mr. Tunji, you can just go on udarabooks.com. All the books are there. udarabooks.com. We deliver books to all parts of Nigeria, wherever you are. We use different courier politics. All the books will pop up. Their prices are there. Okay? So please just go on Udara Books. You see the prices of any book you want. And you can then come back on Udara Books WhatsApp number. And anyway, I will send the WhatsApp number to Mr. Tunji. After the program, I will send him the details he wants. We also have the list. So we can always send the list to you. But most of the books, we have more than 500 titles. We can't have them in a list. So what we have in that list is about 100. Then you can now go on udarabooks.com. If you don't want to go through the process, because you can buy it on that store without even contacting anybody, just go follow the process. It's very easy. Put it in a cart. Use your card. You pay for it. And we will receive the information immediately and we'll package your book and send it to you. It depends on the direction or the location. If you are in Lagos, it takes about 1 to 3 days to get your book. Most times, within 48 hours, you get your book. If you are in Ibadan, you get your book that same day. If you are in Abuja, it takes about 2 to 4 days. You can get it within 48 hours, 72 hours, but you will get your books. And we don't sell pirated books. We also have books on foreign politics. We sell original books. The last time I traveled out of the country, we don't sell pirated. Somebody said, some of your books are expensive, especially the ones written by foreign authors. I said, yes, because they are not pirated. We brought them in. And when you are bringing it in, you are converting dollar to naira. That's what's happening. So even sometimes I'm uncomfortable. There are some I'll say, no, I won't buy it. By the time I convert the dollar to naira, you might be buying it for 30,000, 35,000. There are some quality books, I won't buy them. But some I'll just buy like 4 or 5 copies. I say, okay, somebody might want it, and the person will be able to afford it. But those books are quality books. We don't sell pirated books. As a round-off, I will round off with Ethiopia. I want us to understand Ethiopia, because some are calling for a regional system. Ethiopia went regional and they went to war recently. So I want us to understand that. Hundreds of people have died in Ethiopia in recent time. Why? In a new arrangement that ended the dominance of the TPLF, that is the Tigray people, in the federal system, Abiy emerged to cause the reformation of the Ethiopian political system. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for his effort at building ethnic harmony in Ethiopia and beyond its borders, having formally ended the Ethiopian-Eritrean border war. No sooner had the world recognized him as a peacemaker than he declared war on the recalcitrant Tigray region in November 2020. They fought, and they fought. More than 1 million persons died. When the war started, he warned that he would deploy Ethiopia's entire defensive capability against rebels from the northern Tigray region after their attack and takeover of the town of Laliba, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You know, Tigray was able to match the federal government, like Biafra. Tigray is like Biafra. You know, they now went regional. Tigray had its own region, and Tigray had its own army. So when Tigray disagreed with Abiy, Tigray launched a war against the federal government. Like Biafra launched a war, or Nigeria launched a war against Biafra, but Biafra fought back. So does regional system give the region so much power that they can confront the federal government? Ethiopia just recovered from that war. Peace talks are ongoing, but the war, they've calmed down after about 3 years. More than 500,000 persons died. They died from political reforms. So the TPLF tested the federal government's patience and pushed it to change its defensive mood. And Ethiopia headed into a full-blown war that even other regions came in, Amhara, Oromia. There were now wars in different regions. And African leaders went in to say, no more wars in Africa. They kept talking, and the feuding parties have calmed down. Did ethnic federalism destroy Ethiopia, or is destroying Ethiopia? Ethiopia is going through another phase of the usual ethnic war. If not unitary nationalism, how can ethnic nationalism be worked out for the common people? I'm leaving you with questions to answer. Is it the time for Ethiopia's ethnic nationalities to have new countries out of Ethiopia? Because they fought constantly. And remember, that is one country that was not really colonized, where Italians overran the country. And Haile Selassie had to leave the country. So we'll come to that. How can the thorny questions of whose culture and language should constitute that of the state be answered? Is it Igbo, Yoruba? What's the common language in Nigeria? English, right? But can we teach our children in Yoruba? Can we teach in Hausa? Can we teach chemistry in Yoruba? A federal arrangement organized solely along territorial lines, does that not address the question in Nigeria? Or it will aggravate it? What lessons are we to learn from what happened in Ethiopia and from what is happening in Ethiopia? To fathom answers to these questions, it's important we traced Ethiopia's history from the time of Emperor Haile Selassie to understand Ethiopia's social character. Since the end of the government of Emperor Haile Selassie, Ethiopia has been in perpetual ethnic conflicts. These conflicts were there when the emperor reigned, but they were not as destructive. So on the next edition of the program, I will take you into the history. No, is it the next edition? No. I will announce the continuation. But I think next edition, I'm coming back on Wednesday. The next edition is on Wednesday at 2 p.m. I want to look at a book. Is the book here or it's not here? You know, there was the Zikist movement. The Zikist movement. And there was the written by Professor Tony Falola and Dr. Bola Dauda. So I'm bringing Bola Dauda. I want us to look at chapter 9. On Friday, I will come back to continue this question. Self-determination. I will not look at the history of Ethiopia. Then I will come. Will I move into Biafra? I will redefine my script and tell you. But I have said, it is not a one-program discourse. It is a long discourse on power, politics, self-determination. But to round off this edition with the Ethiopian question, I want us to listen to Johannes and Dawit. I met Johannes and Dawit. They are Ethiopians. I met them in 2018 at the World Conference on Tobacco or Health in Cape Town, South Africa. As a student of Ethiopian politics, I was happy to meet them. So I wanted them to tell me about Ethiopia, what's going on. I love the country, but I wasn't comfortable with what was going on. Immediately I saw them at the conference. I made sure they sat down with me to discuss Ethiopia. They are Ethiopian journalists. So at a corner in the expansive lobby of the convention center, we shared some thoughts on their country. Johannes, your country Ethiopia excites me because of its historical past. Do you appreciate the history of your country?
Of course, yeah, I appreciate the history of Ethiopia because Ethiopia is one of the African countries that have been never colonized by Western powers. Because Ethiopia has very diverse cultures of its own, and Ethiopia has very beautiful culture in such as languages and very diversified ethnic composition and a lot of things, but especially being a country never colonized.
Dawit, that your country was not colonized, does that really matter?
Yes, this is, I think, one of the milestone in Ethiopian history that everyone in Ethiopia spoke about it with proud and honor, that it matters a lot for me as a citizen of Ethiopia. It matters a lot, and this is something we all proud of it.
Ethiopia wasn't colonized. How come it is not an example of a developed state in Africa?
We said Ethiopia never been colonized, and in our history, as any other country, we have some history that Ethiopia have been through a lot with all its internal issues, with all its historical issue. So the fact that we never been colonized, some ask that should be translated into economy and things like development. But also there were challenges in the past that Ethiopia didn't use that opportunity into the economy and the development, because there were many historical factors that Ethiopia couldn't use that opportunity.
Johannes, how do the people of Ethiopia see Emperor Haile Selassie?
Yeah, Emperor Haile Selassie is one of the kings who sustained Ethiopian independence, who took from his ancestor, and he is the last king, and who is a leader, very specialized or attempting to modernize Ethiopia through modern education and building strong modern institutions. The one remembered by this.
Do Ethiopians appreciate him? Do they love him? Or is he a villain?
Many Ethiopians, I think, are proud of him, appreciate him very much, and still there. Some of the peoples even call his name while they are trying to express their telling the truth for the rest.
Dawit, do you like the story of Emperor Haile Selassie?
I do. I mean, as many ordinary Ethiopians, we appreciate what he did for the country. Of course, there are also, as any leader of Ethiopia or as any leader of any country, there were some sides that people maybe demand to be advanced or to be improved by that time. For example, during the era of Haile Selassie, Ethiopia was ruled under feudalism for long. Feudalism was the system that ruled the country. So there were challenges since the 60s, 70s that the youth generation to start to demand to improve the system into maybe socialism or communism.
Yes. I just brought you that part of that interview. It's a 30-minute interview. And we will look at Ethiopia, the history of Ethiopia, and then use it to interpret self-determination. We'll look at that declaration of Biafra. Let me recommend this book to you. This is my best book on Biafra, on the Civil War. This is my best book. Not because other books are not beautiful. It's because this one is not the story of anybody. It is the story of the war, told from different perspectives. New York Times, the news agencies of the world, different persons. It's a diary of the war. You can see it's a big book. A diary of the day-to-day activity of the war. What happened? You need to have this book. How many books do you need? As many as possible. And this is one of them. When you read stories in this book, you have a better understanding of what happened during the war, before the war, and after the war. It is the untold story of the Nigerian Biafra War, written by Dr. Luke Nnameka Aneke. A chronological reconstruction of the events and circumstances of the Nigerian Civil War. This book is on udarabooks.com. I'm beginning to lose my voice. I'm struggling now. You find it on udarabooks.com or contact us on the numbers on the screen, Udara Books numbers on WhatsApp. Just contact us on 080-399-18449. That is one number. Another Udara Book number is 070-1294-1837. Just contact us on WhatsApp And you can buy the books on WhatsApp, or you buy the books on udarabooks.com, and we'll send you your copy. It's a big book, 771 pages, and it's full of classical stories of the war, stories of self-determination. All right. Join us on Wednesday at 2 o'clock West African time for another edition of State Affairs, a continuation of the stories of nationhood, of self-determination, of history, of politics, and power. I am Edmondo Bilo. I worked with Ayo Ashimolo, Tosin Oladile Ayeni, Samuel Kalu, and Miriam Giwa. Thank you for always being there. I'll be back on Wednesday. It's a public holiday. I'm on ground. I'm not going anywhere. This week, I will do the 3 editions, okay? Last week, I was so busy. I was on the road. But this week, I'm on ground. So Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 2 p.m. West African time. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for joining the lecture. And thank you for being my teacher. Bye for now.